wanted to thank everyone for attending our webinar today. Look forward to providing you with some insights into your annual planning processes that you're doing at your organizations and some opportunities that you might not be aware of. So we appreciate your attendance today. In terms of overall agenda, we'll do a brief introduction. We'll jump into some current PMO transformations and branding that's going on. Then we'll dive right into IT planning approaches. Then we'll follow up with question answers and kind of highlight, again, the different webinars that Sean just mentioned. So thanks again for your time today, and we appreciate your participation. In terms of introductions, and many of you might have already been working with Results Positive, but we've been specializing in helping organizations really establish business technology solutions and doing that across multiple different domains, whether that be technology business management, which we'll kind of highlight today, which is a combination of IT financial management and project portfolio management, as well as application lifecycle management, anywhere from application development, testing, as well as automated deployment. IT service management, assisting organizations in their service portfolio and managing their service intake. We also support and partner with multiple different enterprise software organizations and able to bring those software solutions to our customers. And last but not least, on the technology side, we actually now provide customers the ability to get access to technology, and that can be the technology infrastructure from servers and routers and storage. So we look at providing a complete technology business management solution to our customers. We do that through our various service offerings, from our advisory services through to our managed services and software as a service. So those of you that we're working with today, thank you so much for your business. And those of you new, we appreciate your participation today. In terms of a quick view of the marketplace around PMO transformations and what we're seeing in the market today, some of this is rebranding going on, and some of this relates to various organizational changes, executive changes, and things change from that perspective. We're also seeing a movement around technology business management. And there's actually a Technology Business Management Council, and they're really focused on how do we run IT as a business, what are the technology services, and how do we then track and manage those services, both from a cost perspective as well as a planning perspective. So you might be in different brands today around your program management office, either an enterprise program management office with decentralized teams or the newer technology business management office. Some organizations are doing the same function, but naming that the office of the CIO. And then we have some organizations that are focused on the business management office. One key thing that we're seeing that's driving some of this trend is many organizations are realizing their organization is really a technology company. So from large financial institutions that we're working with today, where 100% of their business is digital, meaning that you can bank with them online anywhere, whether it be with banking or whether it be with credit cards, you can do that all digitally. So we see that that's really driving some of these changes. In terms of the Technology Business Management Office, we see 6 key functions in this kind of new branded office, if you will. Some of them are still being called the Office of the CIO. And that starts here in the middle around ideation, demand, and capacity management. So the typical managing of demand, but also comparing that with your overall capacity and resource management. Then portfolio management, that being actually extended beyond just project portfolio management, but also looking at your application, your service, and your technology portfolios. Then business relationship management, as organizations are really trying to be that value-added technology advisor. Business relationship management is helping to manage that demand coming into technology and also allowing technology to be on the forefront of the business demands and what their new innovations are. Then we have the kind of more legacy IT financial management, as well as then the project and program management there in the middle. We see that that's definitely morphing now around agile and hybrid. and being able to support both agile as well as traditional delivery methods. And then procurement and contract management. What we're seeing in terms of an opportunity to consolidate is IT finance and the PMO organizations have an opportunity to work more closely together and start to leverage some common tool sets and some common frameworks. So we're seeing that starting to evolve here with our customers. On top of the core building blocks, if you will, here from a technology business management office, we see some really key functions in technology. Here again, potentially with the Office of the CIO, marketing and communications. So when we start looking at managing technology or IT as a business, how do we market and communicate the service that's being delivered, the value that's being delivered to our stakeholders, i.e. the business. We're also seeing some joint business and technology investment in innovation centers. Business people as well as technology representatives are actually setting up centers, being assigned to these various centers for 6 months to a year or longer to identify what are the next digital solution or offering that they can provide to their customers to drive overall revenue growth or to transform the customer experience or to look for ways to drive out more efficiencies in running the operation. And then we're also seeing business value dashboards. This is an opportunity for technology to highlight and show their understanding of the business metrics and the business performance that's so critical to drive the entire enterprise, but at the same time being able to aggregate that and show some key technology measurements that are driving those business returns and business value. So those are some of the newer things that we're seeing in a technology business management office. Here again, it's not necessarily the importance of the name, it's just really making sure that these functions reside in your organization, and how can you have these all within one organization or one group so that you can get some synergies and alignment across the different functions. So I wanted to step now into IT planning as our focus here for our webinar. And in terms of the goal and the opportunity here on IT planning, it's all about establishing an investment process so that we can really maximize the outcomes to the business. I know a lot of times we get caught up into the annual planning process just all about budgeting, that we've got an overall budget that's handed down from the business. But as we become more strategic, we can look at how do we really manage these investments, determine where we should best invest so that we can drive the business growth and balance that with what's needed to continue to run the business. So different approaches that many of you are probably using in terms of going through your annual planning process. There's a top-down approach, typically where executive or committee on high says, here's your budget, and then from there you need to go and determine what you're going to spend your money on, how that might impact your department, how that might impact your project portfolios. But it's really more top-down, here's your budget, and go from there. There's the bottoms-up approach, and this is really where you're doing that strategic planning at your application portfolio, your project portfolio level, and we'll talk more about that here in our review today. And then you have the hybrid, which I think is typically common. Either you start the top down or the bottoms up, but you end up in a space where you've been giving an overall budget that you need to meet to really meet what the business can afford to invest in. At the same time, you need to do the bottom-up planning to make sure that all the different functions, as well as all of your different portfolios, are being supported so they can continue to run the business, but at the same time, meet those growth initiatives of the business. So we see kind of the hybrid approach being executed with organizations. Next, we see different planning portfolios in organizations trying to understand how we should invest. And this particular model at a high level, I think, is coming from the Gartner industry analysts, but it's really trying to focus on, from an investment portfolio perspective, what are we spending on growing the business? What are we spending on trying to transform the business? And then how are we continuing to run the business. And so this way, strategically, you can kind of set various thresholds that you'd like to invest X percentage in each one of these areas, and then go through your planning process and be able to optimize that at the end. So it's a great way to roll up all your different initiatives across your service portfolios and your application portfolios, even across your different product portfolios as things are changing in today's environment. So what I want to start off here with first is talking about a standard annual planning process, and this is around grow and transform portfolios. What we're seeing is that with the grow and transform portfolios, some organizations are challenged with the distinction between both, but once they have the definition, that particular process is very similar, if not identical, across that life cycle. One thing that's interesting and new with some of the new delivery methods is that some of the inputs here. So traditionally, it was looking at all your demand or your proposed projects for the year, and that also then included your in-flight projects that were carryover from the previous year that still are in flight. But now we're also seeing epics, so those various themes the product teams are working on, or your application development teams are working on, and we're seeing that as a big input into the overall annual planning process. So the really key goal here is to make sure you get the demand in, and this is kind of following that bottoms-up approach, being able to assess and validate that demand if that demand's accurate, kind of having the stage gate, then getting into the prioritization and ranking of those, and then going through basically the iterations here to fine-tune that overall portfolio, if you will. So creating those scenarios, determining kind of what your budget thresholds are, and then being able to present those to the governance board for approval, and then as appropriate, going through the iterations before creating your overall annual plan. A couple things that we've highlighted here at the bottom are really critical is business value. So as focused around technology business management and just really the value that technology is providing, needing to have a solid business value framework, whether that be from basic cost-benefit analysis to benefit realization, really being able to identify the business value is important for getting these overall approvals. And next is looking at your finance and capacity planning. So budgeting is obviously a big component here, but also capacity plan. And so when we look at an overall operating plan, it's important to understand at that particular point that we've identified all the different initiatives we're going to do for the year. We've also identified and established a resource plan. So we've done that capacity planning so we understand the overall sequencing, we understand when we're going to need to bring potential more resources in the organization to meet that strategic demand around our grow and transform portfolio. So that's kind of a standard process. Some of that might be standard for what you're doing today, but we're seeing more and more of the epics coming in here around the product focused organizations, and then a strong focus here on the business value. The other thing that we're seeing with organizations, and a lot of times when your organizations are doing some of this, and some of this is new and things that they have on the horizon. So one key input or multiple key inputs we see into your overall demand is organizations being able to effectively understand their product portfolio. So what are the products that they're supporting in the organization? Have they continued to rationalize those products? Which products are they decided to sunset? Which products are they going to enhance? Or what are new products that they're planning to implement this year to grow the business? And then the same type of scenario around services. So the whole idea around technology business management is all around the technology services. So looking at the services portfolio, seeing what services you'll continue to do internally versus externally, what services need to be improved in terms of overall performance, what services might need to be adjusted in terms of the level of service being provided, because the value there is not requiring a very high service level, so the overall investment there can go down for that particular service. Next, we're seeing a big focus here around application portfolio. In the digital world, a lot of all the functions that are happening to support digital interaction with customers around applications and software. So here's an opportunity to continually to monitor and rationalize your application portfolio to determine where we need to invest. And those investments could be from sunsetting applications, those could be from enhancements, or those could be from creating new applications. And then the last one here is around the technology portfolio. So there's core technology foundation, if you will, needed to run the enterprise. And so looking at that, understanding what technology refresh might need to be in place to just really operate the business. So effective organizations that are really creating a very strong grow and transform portfolio, but also have the accuracy there and can anticipate what their needs are for the year or for the various period, are able to tap into these portfolios and use the outputs as inputs into the overall annual planning process. It's also a key ability to really streamline your annual planning process, because if you're doing your ongoing portfolio management, you're doing that periodically, kind of a best practice is reviewing that on a quarterly basis, then you can feed that right into your epics and your proposals, and that some of that stuff might already be there as you need to go through your planning process. And then last but not least, we've learned as you go through the planning process, it's important to make sure you're tying it to your strategic goals and objectives, and that's critical here for Grow and Transform. Because really the investment portfolio is how we're going to tell the shareholders, if you will, or how the CEO is going to tell the shareholders, how are we going to accomplish our growth plans for the year. And so that's part of the communication that we talked about earlier, how technology can start communicating and marketing how they're going to invest to help achieve overall strategic goals and objectives. There needs to be strong program management across the various IT planning activities. One key component of that is overall coaching. It's important right up front here in getting the overall data and demand into the process that it's consistent and it's done in the same fashion. And a lot of times that requires coaching, that requires sitting down with the different groups and getting that information in so that you can do your overall planning. And then we're also seeing a strong need for planning dashboards and reports. So I can filter, slice, and dice the information, look at our grow portfolio, look at our transform portfolio, aggregate those together. So this is kind of the high-level summary of what we see for best practice in annual planning around grow and transform portfolios. In terms of the run portfolio, it's definitely different than the grow and transform. Runs focusing on operations and how do we continue to operate the business. So you have different demand intakes and a different process to draft those operational budgets. So a lot of this is typically done by IT finance. They'll look at previous labor budgets by department versus actuals. From there, they might create an overall labor forecast. That forecast might reflect various top-down initiatives, whether it be we need to reduce our overall labor costs or we need to grow our labor costs to meet our overall growth of the business. Same thing on the capital side, all of our non-labor, what were our budgets the previous year, what are our actuals, how is that going to help us then drive and create a forecast for the future year. And then another key component here when you're looking at overall providing service as a technology organization, it's really a key input that can drive your capital plan. It can also create an input into your labor plan. And so what this is you're looking at your various service units. So that could be, say, for example, storage. So what was our plan for storage last year? What were our actuals? What's our growth plan, our forecast for that service unit going forward? So there's a lot of technology service units, if you will, that need to look at. That could be something as also like looking at, hey, we're just bringing on or acquire 2 or 3 new organizations. How do we need to scale the size of our service management organization to really handle all the call volumes that are going to come into the organization? Is that going to require software purchases? Is that we're going to require additional staff? That type of analysis can help drive and determine the forecasts, and which lead into the draft operational budget. Then once that's been drafted, looking at the different scenarios and presenting those budgets and going through the life cycle process here to get those finally approved, and establishing an annual operating plan for your run portfolio. And then that way you've got your budget set across department, both labor as well as non-labor. And it's important here to start tying it back to value, as well as looking at any finance and capacity planning as well. And then last but not least, in this particular case, we're tying it to operational goals and objectives versus strategic goals and objectives. It's still important to do some of the program management and overall coaching. Here again, a lot of times this is kind of done in a black box in IT finance, but that's where we see an opportunity, more collaboration between the PMO and IT finance. And then the big value here of having your planning dashboards and reports. Wouldn't it be great that I could actually look at my run portfolio, my overall budgets, my plan, my actuals, my variances, and be able to then start looking at my years going forward. How would I like to also then couple that with my run and transform portfolios as well? So we see that's where the opportunity is for organizations. So in summary, if we were to look at the overall process summary, and this is kind of meant to kind of give a high-level process summary, but also look at the different roles and responsibilities. So you can see here, grow and transform, similar processes, if not identical. It's going to go through and really capture your demand. From there, you're going to develop your scenarios, present those plans and get those approvals. And then from there, you'll generate your overall grow and transform plans for the year. On the run side here, it's really more looking at your budgets and your actuals. And then from there, identifying your forecasts. Like we said, also then identifying those various service units. Those are expected to increase or decrease, make the appropriate adjustments in your forecast. And then from there, coming in and generating your overall budgets. So this kind of highlights a high-level summary. You can see here from a color coding that IT finance typically covers the items here in blue. The PMO typically covers the more of the project-based planning around grow and transform. And then we're seeing an opportunity here for both organizations to leverage common reporting solutions for dashboards and reports. That way they can get a complete picture across all of the IT spend. Next, just to kind of give you a look at solution architecture, and this will be coming up in one of our upcoming webinars here on IT planning, is looking at it from various technology solutions. So in the blue, we're typically seeing that being done more and more with IT financial management solutions. And so we're working actually with those organizations in helping customers implement those solutions. And then we see in the dark gray is the PPM solutions and kind of where they sit and play, being able to help with that overall capture of demand, doing that scenario analysis for their projects, and then from there establishing their grow and run plan. And then we're seeing combined is the opportunity around the IT planning dashboards as well as summary reports. The end game that we're seeing here with organizations is they need to pull it all together, and they need to make sure that they're not missing anything as well as they're not duplicating anything. So if they can bring these all together and have a complete view of their grow, transform, and run plans all in the same solution, then they have a true picture of what's being invested and what the associated outcomes